And before we dive in, I'm going to invite you to just pause for a moment and just see what's happening in your body right now. And is there anything to do, change your posture, get a blanket, anything that would help you be a little bit more comfortable? Maybe even lie down. Yeah. So we do that, right? We tend to ignore sometimes our body signals. And part of developing mindfulness is to tune in so we can respond. The other thing I would invite you to do is if you have other windows open or your phone nearby, just to put it aside. I like to put mine out of view so doesn't pull my attention away. So mindfulness doesn't have to mean sitting in lotus position with your eyes closed, meditating. It's these short moments many times throughout the day where we take a mindful breath, check in with the body, notice our surroundings. It can be very simple, but also very helpful. Okay. All right. So I just want to say hello, let you know who I am and what I've been up to and why I'm here tonight or what brings me here tonight. Obviously, my name is Robin Boudette, and I practice as a clinical psychologist for 30 years and worked with a lot of different issues, including anxiety, depression, and eating disorders. And late in my career, I met a fellow named Judson Brewer, who's a psychiatrist, a researcher, and a neuroscientist. And he's brought together some ancient teachings from Buddhism, Buddhist psychology, modern day psychology, and neuroscience to help us develop ways to change habits. And that is the single most thing that changed my career and the way that I work with people. And I'm going to share that with you tonight. And you don't have to learn it all tonight because there's lots of resources, which I'll share at the end. But I want to give you an introduction to that work. That's the 3-step model. Sometimes we call it the 3 gears. When during COVID, Shirley and I lived together for a little while. And although I knew she had migraine, it was very different living with someone with migraine. I don't have migraine. And one of the things I noticed was how she didn't know how it was going to go day to day. She didn't know when she could exercise or whether or not she could work or how bad it was going to be or what medication to take. Maybe some of you can relate to this, right? The uncertainty. And uncertainty is one of the triggers we know for anxiety. So we started talking at that time about recognizing the overlap between migraine and anxiety, how people with migraine are more vulnerable to it. And then the more anxiety might make you more vulnerable to migraine. And we met up with a researcher and we did a pilot study about bringing this program of unwinding anxiety to people with migraine. Just a small pilot study, but we did get some promising results for people who were able to use the tools. And at that time, we were using an app. The people that were able to use the tools and use the app did see a decrease in their anxiety and some improvement in the quality of their life. So I hope this is helpful to you. And my intention for tonight is to introduce this approach about how the mind works, how we develop habits. And we do see anxiety as a habit that the mind and body get into, and then give you a practical way to work with this, a way that could support and assist you in training your brain so that you can change your relationship to worry and anxiety. Okay. I'm going to be using the chat tonight, in addition to having a couple times where I'll ask you to write about something. So I don't know if the chat is open yet, but Shirley, if you could open the chat.
It's open.
Although we have a lot of people, probably too many to do introductions. Let's just see who's here. So I have 2 questions for you. Where are you geographically? And what's your favorite food? And I'll start. Okay, I am located in central New Jersey, and I'm going to go with 2 foods. My 2 favorite foods are watermelon and chocolate.
Oh, that's pretty much what I would say.
Really?
I was thinking about watermelon.
No wonder we're friends.
That's
Let's
right.
see what we got. We got Lancaster, PA, and popcorn. Oh, Bellevue, Washington, ice cream, both sides of the country. St. Louis, right in the middle. Agrees with me, chocolate and ice cream. Phoenix. Jamie from Phoenix says pizza. Aaron from Maryland says blueberries. Let's see. It looks like we have 2. 2 for popcorn, burgers, and fried onions. Yum. That's Etta from Queens. I'm always amazed to see San Francisco, Central California, people from all over. Massachusetts and chicken. So check it out. See just the breadth of our group tonight. I don't see anybody from outside the country, but people from all over the country. Berkeley, one of my favorite places. If we did favorite places, Berkeley would be one of them. Elizabeth likes ice cream. All right. Thank you for sharing that. And maybe you got to see other people that are in your area, or maybe that share the same favorite food. So tonight we're going to be coming together to explore your direct experience. So there'll be times when I ask for examples and hope that you'll participate, because if you've been in groups like this, you probably know that when one person shares, there's the potential for everybody to learn. Because really, when you look at it, our experiences aren't that different. They're more similar than they are different. So I guess we are recording this, so it'll be, I guess, a file for Miles for Migraine. The breakout groups will not be recorded. And I just like to remind people of the possibility of taking what you learn, but leaving the stories, who you meet and what they say, just to make sure it's comfortable for everybody to share from their heart, share from their experience. And so can I get you to agree with that? Maybe give me a thumbs up or kind of a hand wave. And if you don't have your camera on, please raise your thumb and let us know that you got that instruction. And we'll just trust that everybody's on board with that. We will do breakouts. You do have the option to pass. But one of the things I hear from people is that they never want to do breakouts, but when they do, they feel better, right? Because it's important to know, especially in this community, that you're not alone. And also the tendency is to withdraw, contract sometimes. And the less we reach out and connect, the less we want to. And that can be a habit, right? Avoiding. All right. I think we're set. So I've already said that people with migraine are more likely to have anxiety, and that anxiety can already be a trigger. There's so much uncertainty that you live with when you have migraine. So I just want to define anxiety. Actually, let's do this. Let's open up the chat. How would you define anxiety? How would you define it? We could get a couple responses in the chat. Be an interesting way to start. I don't see anything in there. Maybe you're saying that's what we're here to learn about. Anybody? What is anxiety? Okay. A sense of discomfort or worry, a sense of unease, worry can paralyze if bad. Fear of what you don't know is going to happen. Fear, nervousness, apprehension, worrying, and overthinking. An emotion that's often characterized by feeling afraid, over worry, right? So, yeah, I think this captures it, right? It could be experienced in the body, tension, different kinds of physical sensations. Also, what happens in the mind, worry, overthinking. So here's a pop quiz. If you had to pick anxiety, does it feel more contracting and closed, or does it feel more open and expansive? And you can either unmute or pop it in the chat. Does anxiety feel contracting and closed or open and expansive? Let's see.
Saying contracted and closed.
Contracted and closed, right? Right. Yeah. Exactly. So I think we have a good definition of what anxiety is. And somebody suggested it. One of the things that often triggers anxiety is uncertainty. And I think that's one of the things that I learned is living with migraine doesn't simply mean or only mean having migraine attacks or whatever symptoms come with it, but living with uncertainty of not knowing. And that is a trigger really for anyone to have anxiety. So uncertainty. All right. So I also want to bring in, there's other habits that are related to anxiety. So when you have uncertainty about what's going to happen tomorrow, there might be stress eating. There might be distracting behaviors, watching too much TV, spending too much time on your phone. The behavior might be worrying. It might be obsessing, overthinking, overplanning. The behavior, the habit you might get into is blaming yourself. It could be blaming others. It could be all kinds of thinking behavior, thinking habits, from anything from blaming yourself to regretting something that you've done. So another question I want to ask is if we kind of broaden it out and say that there can be lots of habits related to anxiety. One is worrying. What are some other habits that you might use to try and manage or distract from anxiety? Will you pop those in the chat now? Avoiding situations, always staying busy. Right? So that could be a behavior. Rumination, overthinking, yeah. Withdrawal, closing off. Watching too much Netflix. Deep breathing, exercise. Okay. That could be a good habit to get into. Avoiding people, puzzles, late night, late bedtime, increased distraction, increased pain. Right. So oftentimes our habits, right, they're our best attempts to help us to feel better, to help us manage the anxiety, to protect us in a way. But sometimes our attempts to feel better, like worrying, we're worrying so we can predict the future, so we can maybe make a plan for ourselves. But even though that might be to protect us, it actually adds another layer. It adds another layer of stress. So we're going to move now. So thanks for identifying habits. We got them out there. There's a good range. There's behavioral habits, right, of distraction, watching TV, staying up too late, withdrawing. There's also mental habits of worrying, overthinking. So we've defined anxiety, and now we're connecting that with habits that we get into, behaviors that we get into to protect ourselves or to avoid anxiety. So now I want to share a video with you. It's short, it's 3 minutes. It's about how habits are formed. So really this approach is about you learning how your brain works and how your habits are formed. Because once we learn how they're formed, we can learn how to change them. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And as I'm doing that, it's a good time just to take a couple deep breaths. Maybe to check in with your posture. Even take a stretch if that would feel good. So this will be about 3 minutes, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Brains in a bit, but for now, let's focus specifically on how habits around anxiety are formed. We'll call it the habit loop. First, something happens in your life. It could be good or bad. It's called a trigger. For example, what does it feel like when something good happens in your life? Let's use getting a funny text or watching a cute video on your phone as an example. Your brain says, "Oh, that feels good. Do that some more," so you can keep that good feeling going. So your brain lays down this memory.
Rob,
Oh,
can you
you want to
pause
feel
for a
good.
second?
You should do that again. Now you start
Yeah?
The video's not advancing, just the sound. I don't know why.
to associate that behavior with feeling good.
It's not advancing now, it's advancing on my screen.
Okay.
Is it advancing for other people? Thumbs up, thumbs down? No. This is stress. Right now, this is stressful for me. Let's everybody just, once again, you guys take a pause. I'm going to stop the share. I'll reload the video. We'll give it one more try. And if we don't get it, what we'll do is we'll just listen to it.
Yeah.
Because the content is pretty much the same. Hold on, because I have
What
to,
you get
sorry.
from an education and
I'm
time.
going to have to skip the commercial. Okay, it's ready. We're going to try it again. And maybe just give it a second or two. And then get it full screen. And then give me a second and give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
For now, let's focus specifically on how habits around anxiety are formed. We'll call it the habit loop.
No, it's not advancing. I think,
It happens in your life. It could be good or bad. It's called a trigger. For example, what does it feel like when something good happens in your life? Let's use getting a funny text or watching a cute video on your phone as an example. Your brain says, "Oh, that feels good. Do that some more," so you can keep that good feeling going. So your brain lays down this memory. Oh, next time you want to feel good, you should do that again. Now you start to associate that behavior with feeling good. The next time you hear that alert on your phone, that triggers your brain to act. Oh, I should check my phone. The more you do this, getting an alert on your phone, leading you to watch a cute video, leading you to feel good, the more this gets laid down as a habit loop. Trigger, behavior, reward. This works with negative emotions too. Have you ever just thought about how far behind you are on your to-do list, or beaten yourself up for making a mistake or missing a deadline at school or work? How does that feel? Not so good, is it? Just like we want to have more good feelings, we want feelings to go away as quickly as possible. So what do we do when this happens? We get triggered by that thought or emotion and go and do something on our phones to feel better. This too lays down a memory. If you're stressed or anxious, distract yourself. You'll feel better. The more we do this, get anxious, which leads to distracting yourselves, which leads to feeling a little bit better, the more this too becomes a habit. Trigger, behavior, reward. Now, do you have stress or anxiety that seems to trigger more anxiety, feeding on itself? This might become its own type of habit loop. For example, you think of all the things you have to do today. Then you start to worry that you can't possibly get everything done. And that struggle this case, stress itself can easily become a trigger for out of control anxiety. Instead of stress triggering us to get our to-do list done so we feel better, it triggers out of control worry thinking. Getting caught up in worry thinking becomes the new behavior in the habit loop. The result? We contract down into that tight little ball of anxiety. That's not much of a reward, is it? So there can be two types of habit loops that can be happening here. The one in which the behavior of doing something, like distracting ourselves, can make us feel a little bit better, and the one where the behavior is out of control thinking that just gets us all knotted up in a ball of anxiety. No matter which habit loop it is, what's tricky is that the more you get caught up in these behaviors, the more automatic they become. Over time, you're not even consciously choosing these actions anymore. It's like you're on autopilot. You're not even flying the plane. What this program will teach you.
Okay. So you got the audio, but not the video. Is that right?
Right.
Yes, but it was fine. Just the audio is good, except when there was a little blip
That was
and
me.
silent.
I did
Oh.
that by mistake. Sorry.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Wendy. I'm glad to hear that it was clear. So I'll just review a couple of the points. So our brains like to form habits to help us, right? Could you imagine if we didn't have any automatic habits, like we had to think every time we're making a cup of tea or every time we're sitting down to drive, right? So habits become automatic, and they're the way that the habits are formed, a trigger, something happens, could be internal, external, and then there's a behavior. And they gave two examples of different kinds of habits, right? And you've already, it lines up perfectly with what you already popped in the chat. One of the habits around anxiety is distracting yourself, avoiding TV. I saw Netflix in there, picking up the phone. And the other habit is over worrying, overthinking. So there's trigger, behavior, and then the reward. And that's how habits are formed. They're formed based on their reward value. That's what gets logged in the brain. So this first step of the 3-step model is not changing anything. It's learning about your own habit loops and being able to map out. Really, the trigger is least important. We can get really stuck in what was it, what caused it, but most important is knowing that you're in the behavior, knowing what the behavior is, and starting to explore what the results are. So maybe by show of thumbs up, we were going to take a little time in a breakout room, about 6 minutes, 3 people each. And the task would be to map out a habit loop of yours. And it's easiest if you start with the behavior sometimes. Like when you already put in a bunch of behaviors, avoiding people, curling up in a ball. Somebody put puzzles, work with that. Watching too much Netflix, sleeping too much. Start with the behavior. You may or may not know the trigger. And then talk a little bit about what the results are. Shirley, could you put in the chat trigger, behavior, and then reward or results? So right now you're just in the data collection stage. You're collecting data about your own habits around anxiety. So like I said, here's the options. You'll be in a breakout room with 3. Great to go to a breakout room, breaks that sense of isolation. But if you want to pass on that tonight, you could go ahead and write that down on your own. And if you end up in a breakout room and nobody else shows up, you could also do that in writing form. And it's really not personal. Maybe one of your habits is taking things personally. It's not personal. All right, so are there any questions? Maybe by a virtual hand, are there any questions? And it's fine to ask a question. If you have the question, somebody else probably has it too. All right, let's roll. We're going to go into breakout rooms for
I have a
6.
question. I'm sorry.
Yes, Keisha.
Yeah, Keisha, I'm sorry. I signed in a little bit late. I was talking to my mom. But what is the assignment you guys are given for the breakout rooms?
Around your habits around anxiety. So it could be distracting yourself. It might be worrying. Identify what triggers it, what the behavior is, and what the result or reward is. What do you get out of it?
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, so you're going to automatically go into breakout room right now. If you don't want to go in, I see some people saying no, just don't choose to go in. So here we go.
Shirley, do you have the clock going?
Okay, the breakout rooms are coming back. The folks are coming back in 25 seconds.
I was in a room and it just stopped. There was only one lady and myself.
And that
Great.
was
There
that.
you are.
Yep, and that was me, Betty. And I lost you too. So
I'm not sure what happened. I just logged out and logged back in.
Oh,
Hi.
that's weird. Okay, sorry about that. Well, glad to have you back. Everybody's back now.
All right, maybe if people could mute themselves, that would be good. And if not, if Shirley, you could mute those people, that'd be great. All right, so let's see what the data, let's hear about your data. This approach is all about your direct experience. You don't have to go on retreat or buy a book or really go outside yourself. So I'm hoping that a couple people might volunteer to map out their habit loop, identify trigger, behavior, reward, or result. Anybody? Show of hands. Unmute.
yeah.
Beat myself up.
Oh, I didn't hear the whole thing. Could you do the whole thing?
Beat myself up.
So that's the behavior.
Blame myself. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Anybody else have that one? You're hard on yourself, beat yourself up. Yeah. I see
Well,
some hands, 2 hands. So we need you to focus on the trigger. Beat yourself up is the behavior. What do you get from that? What's the result of that? You're shaking your head. All right.
Unhappiness.
Right. Unhappiness.
It could lead to a migraine.
Right. It could lead to a migraine, right? That beating
Wow.
yourself up, being hard on yourself. Yeah, I'm noticing some things are popping in the chat. So for Maura, the question is, can you share your habit loop, trigger, behavior, result? Wendy just shared hers. The trick really could be anything, right? The behavior is beating yourself up and the result is not feeling good, even triggering a migraine when you're beating yourself up. Anybody else, just to give us a range of examples? All right, Jim, did you raise a hand? Yep,
Jim,
there you go.
There you go.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, one of my major anxiety is going into my bedroom
Mm.
because I lost my wife suddenly to a massive brain hemorrhage while we were on a trip, and the loneliness creates anxiety. So I don't really want to go into that room at night.
Mm.
And that, of course, enhances my daily migraines.
Right. So I'm very sorry to hear that, Jim. I really
Okay.
am. But it's very important.
But I have a tool that I learned from Stanford to control it. And it has been life-changing for me. It's called EAET, Emotional Awareness and Expressive Therapy. And it is also based on a workbook by Harold Schreibner that I was introduced to by my Stanford pain therapist. And it has knocked my migraines in half or more and totally reduced the anxiety.
That's great. I'm glad
And I've
to
dropped
hear
all
that.
my medications.
Yeah, I can't, I don't know about that approach. I can't speak to it, but it sounds like the habit you have was avoiding the bedroom and having some anxiety, and that was making the migraines worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So this is
I have daily migraines.
This is the first step of the model is recognizing your habit loop, knowing it's a habit loop, right? Because sometimes we don't want to look at it. And awareness is the antidote, right? Does anybody else want to share a habit loop before we go on to the second step? Okay, so the second step, sometimes we call this the gears model, because it's like driving a car. And when we're mindless, when we're not paying attention to our habit loops, we're beating ourselves up without awareness. Maybe we're worrying without awareness. We're distracting ourselves. The more we do that without awareness, the more we do that. Maybe you've heard the expression, the neurons that fire together, wire together, right? The more we do something, the more we do it. That's what a habit is. So just this one step of becoming aware of it is the beginning of stepping out of it. So once we've recognized it's a habit loop, we can start to ask the question, what do I get from this? And just like Wendy said a couple minutes ago, she recognizes the habit, but now we're focusing on the results of it. And sometimes our brains think, right? This might be how your brain works. Ooh, if I beat myself up, maybe beating myself up will help me to learn. It will help me to not do it next time. It will protect me. But really what we're learning is if you take a deeper look, there's a downside to that. Doesn't feel good, could trigger migraines. So if you have your writing materials nearby, I want to go to the second gear. So if they're gears, I started with reverse. Reverse, you go backwards when you're mindless, you're engaging in it. You shift into first gear when you recognize what the habit loop is. Okay, now you shift into second gear by really diving into what do I get from this behavior. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and I invite you to write down the answers. And see if you can drop into your experience, and instead of answering from an intellectual spot in your head, see if you can respond from an embodied experience. And if you don't know what that means, I'll give you some cues, some guidelines. So recall a time, remember a time recently when you engaged in the behavior. Worrying, too much TV, beating yourself up, perfectionism. What do you get from this behavior? Go ahead and write it down. What's the result of this behavior? What do you get? How does it feel in your body? How does it feel in your body? If that's hard to answer, maybe going back to, is it open and expansive or closed, contracted? When you're engaging in this behavior or after the behavior, what are the thoughts and emotions? How do you feel about yourself? Okay, so let's come back. And you're collecting your own data now. You're scientists, you're behavioral scientists studying your brain and your own behavior. How rewarding is that habit?
Not at all.
Yes. Margie, go ahead.
It's not at all rewarding. It triggers really bad physical feelings, a greater sense of being overwhelmed. I feel frustrated and can even become angry about it. Feels like my head is full and in a vice, constricted.
Right, right. So you have both physical and emotional you're noticing, right? That's the downside of that behavior. All right. Did anybody find that there were positives about it? Is there an upside to the habit? Okay, Fran, I see your hand up, and then Deanie.
Yeah, in my case, I delay making payments on things.
Mm-hmm.
Something about that. And the upside is I don't have to make decisions. I don't have to commit. And I'm free to just be open to whatever else comes along. And I feel somehow freer.
All right. So that's part of it. What's the other part? What's the downside?
The downside is I continue to think about it. Do I want to do it? Don't I want to do it? Do I want to? Don't I want it? It's still going around.
Right. So you're pointing out something really important, right? So we have some brief relief from these habits. You have some experience of relief. It feels free. And so that's probably partly what keeps it in place. That's reinforcing. That's quote unquote a reward, right?
Yeah.
But now you're going a little deeper and you're seeing the downside. So this model is based on seeing the downside, seeing the negative effects, seeing the emotional, psychological toll it takes on you. And you could focus on being free, but when you focus on the downside, that helps the brain to take in that data and realize, putting things off isn't really rewarding at all. All right. So thank you for that example. So yeah, so you could see for yourself, just being aware, what feels better, to kind of put off and feel free, or maybe feel the weight of that worrying about it. Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of a little bit of the tricky part, because often there's a little bit of an upside to some of these habits. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing them. So part of this question, what do I get from this? It goes beyond that upside into all the results that you get, the long-term, the short-term, the physical, the emotional. And once we can really get in touch with that, like Margie was sharing, we experience what they call in the model is disenchantment. We're no longer excited to do it when we feel the results of it. So I'll give you a couple of examples. One is, what happens when you touch a hot stove, right? You feel the burn and you don't do it again. So that's a simplified version. But one of the things they found with this model, with smoking, right? They didn't tell people to stop smoking. They said, pay attention when you smoke. What does it taste like? What does it feel like? And that's what they learned from. The classic piece of data, a woman said it smells like stinky cheese and tastes like chemicals, right? So when we feel the results of over worrying, doesn't feel good. I'm all uptight. It's triggering a migraine. Or we feel the results of beating ourselves up. It doesn't help me. I feel worse about myself. Now I'm isolating. When we feel those results in an experiential way, the brain can start to learn, oh, this isn't so rewarding after all. It's not helping me. Okay, so I'm noticing the time. I'm going to jump to the third step. There's no magic answer. I just want to prepare you. It's more about learning how your brain works and identifying the habit loops, and then tasting this disenchantment, finding it in your own experience. Okay, so first gear, map the habit loop. Second gear, what do I get from this? And not in an intellectual way, not in your head, this is not good for me, but more in the ways that people have expressed it tonight, how it actually feels in your direct experience. Once we've touched that hot stove, that loosens the grip of the habit, and we have a little more freedom to choose. We have a little more, we're not so excited to do it anymore. And the third gear is stepping out of the habit loop. So I want to collect a little more data with you. Okay. So now I would like you to bring to mind a time or experience, anytime really, when you weren't doing that behavior. You weren't worrying, you weren't beating yourself up. Maybe it's a time recently. Instead of staying up too late, you went to bed on time, whatever the behavior was. Really drop into what was that like. So bring to mind that time when you weren't engaging in that habit. And what did you get from that? What was the felt sense? How did it feel in your body? Was it more open and expansive, or was it closed and contracted? How did you feel about yourself? Okay. So let's come back and analyze the data. Somebody want to share? All right, Margie, we're going to get a pre-test, post-test. What's your data in this department when you didn't engage in the behavior?
I had a few days recently when I was not overbooked with anything, and I've got to feel peaceful and calm, relaxed. I did things I don't do when I don't have time, like practice the piano, read, just things that I really enjoy but have to be put aside when I'm overwhelmed with other things to do.
So you really had that taste of what it feels like when you give yourself enough time. There's some flexibility in your day. You do things, you're even smiling as you're describing it, right?
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Right.
Couple of days.
It was wonderful. So if you did a comparison, how does it feel when you're overwhelmed, busy, vice grip on your head? And how does it feel when you give yourself a little space, doing things that you enjoy, right?
Yeah.
Which is more rewarding?
Well, of course, the things that, when I'm not overwhelmed, the things I enjoy.
Yeah. So we say, of course, because it makes sense up here, but it's great even right now to take in that memory. You know, here you're smiling, you can remember it, your body knows it, you can feel it, that's the reward that's more rewarding.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else have some data when you do this comparison? Oh, I see some things from the chat. Calm and productive. Thank you. Feeling relaxed, grounded. Nice. So when we take this time to do that second question, what do I really get from this? Which can be really hard because it doesn't feel good to feel into the results of some of these habits. But that's what we learn from. That's what the brain learns from when we take in that data. We're not so excited to do it anymore. And then we can pause to see what's more rewarding, what actually feels better. So a good question for the third step is what do I need right now? What do I need right now? And it's not substituting a behavior, but as you are able to take that mindful moment and pause a little bit, there might be something, if you're somebody that with that you're in the habit loop of withdrawing, maybe you need connection. Maybe you need a little care. And then each time you're able to do, somebody even mentioned here, yoga can be grounding, doing puzzles. That's something to savor the result that you get from that. It's not a drive-by, but it's said that the feeling body, when the body feels, the brain learns. And what the brain is learning is what's more rewarding. Is it more rewarding to be worried, over planning, or is it more rewarding to be in the present moment right now? Who knows what's going to come tomorrow, or what will happen at work, or what someone will say to you. We don't know that, but the other option might be to be curious about what's happening in my life right now. So any questions before I kind of start to summarize or wrap up?
There's a question in the chat, Robin.
Yes.
What if the anxiety is so much so that it paralyzes us even when we are aware that we are doing it and do not want to consciously do it? and actually hate that we do it because we see the negative results that happen?
That's a great question. All right. So when you're so stressed like that, if my hand is the brain, right? The thinking part of the brain is offline. When we're so stressed that we're that overwhelmed. And that's a time to do a grounding exercise. And if you can, and if you cannot, the great thing about this is you can engage in the behavior. You don't have to force yourself to stop. But then after, or even right now, you go back, just like we did in the group, and recall, what do I get from this? What do I get from this? Because it's not just in the moment you have to force yourself to stop. It's training the brain retroactively. So I would say two things. So when there's times like that, having ways that can be soothing, and we'll end with a practice, actually. We'll end with a grounding practice that fits into these categories of short moments many times throughout the day. And then the other piece is other times, like when you're feeling a little bit more able to really dial into the second step, the second gear. Okay. Yeah. All right. So Shirley, how can I put resources in the chat?
Is it a link? You can just cut and paste it into there.
Okay. So
we can send it out after the fact if that's
all right. Let's do that. So this is really an introduction. It's just scratching the surface, and just to let you know a little bit a different way of working with habits and working with the mind. There's an app that's free, and it's for people with all kinds of habits. So it could be substance abuse, it could be worrying, it could be beating yourself up. And the organization is called Mind Shift Recovery. It's an app that walks you through the steps that we talked about. And there is a free group every Thursday at noon Eastern. And I'm not advertising it. I don't get anything out of it. I'm just letting you know, because it's not like, okay, so all of a sudden you realize something and things change. This takes time, and it takes repetition for the brain to learn. Okay, I want to
in the chat.
All right, great.
We can send it out after the fact. We also have a survey we want you to do before you go. So,
all right, I'm gonna
there for another 2 minutes.
I want to read for a poem. All right. If you can start the day without caffeine or pills, if you're cheerful, ignoring aches and pains, if you can resist complaining and boring people with your troubles, if you can understand when loved ones are too busy to give you time, if you can overlook when people take things out on you, though no fault of yours, something goes wrong, if you can take criticism without blame and resentment, if you can face the world without lies or deceit, if you can conquer tension without medical help, if you can relax without liquor, if you can sleep without the aid of drugs, then you're probably a dog.
Yay. Great. That's good. I love that, Robin.
So we're in this together. We're in this together. You're not alone. Yeah.
Where can I find that poem? We'll send that out too. If you send us the Robin will send me the poem.
I'll send it to you.
Out in an email and other resources that Robin wants to share with us.
All right. I think that about wraps it up. We're at 8:30. I sincerely hope this is helpful to you. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to start writing out some of these habit loops. And as you're able to begin to ask this question, what do I get from this? What are all the things I get from this? And let your brain learn from your experience.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you so much for being here.